The Messenger was a 2018 game that promised a modern twist on the classic pixelated platformer genre, and for many, it delivered just that. I recently purchased this game when it was on sale, with the reference from a friend that it was really good. Basically, I would call it a retro platformer with lots of modern day twists. Gameplay is fun, even if sometimes annoying, but we'll talk about that later. The level design at the beginning may seem simple, but eventually turns into something very obscure and cool. So, the story in this game is about as simple as it gets, at least at the start. You gotta get a scroll to this guy on the other side of the island to save people. Not the most intriguing. But after multiple events, the story actually becomes pretty unique and interesting. To avoid spoilers, I won't really say anything in specific. Anyways, although I haven't beaten it yet, I'm pretty close and might have already by the time you read this. Speaking of time, the game is about 15 hours long, depending on how many collectibles you get and if you play the free DLC. One thing I must praise the game designers on is for the design. Even though it's pixelated, this game is beautiful, like absolutely stunning. Everything from the character designs to the backgrounds of the worlds are wonderful. It's obvious a lot of time was put into them, and I'm very glad. The colors always match and blend to create a game that is literally just eye candy. Along with the backgrounds, this game has great music. While many of the songs sound similar, that doesn't mean they're bad. Like I said, none really stand out as my favorite or something I would listen to over and over again, but almost all the songs are catchy. Later on in the game, the music design starts to get really neat. Those who have played it probably know what I'm talking about. Another one of my favorite parts of the game is the bosses. They're all unique design-wise, and usually a blast to battle. Except the red dragon, he can actually go die. Anyways, I like how each boss has a sort of backstory, or at least some sort of character. Something many bosses seem to lack in games. The majority of the time it just throws you in with a scary monster and you have to kill it, which this game also does, but not often. Speaking of characters, I just love the characters, mainly the shopkeeper. The Messenger is not at all a super serious game. It's actually full of multiple moments of humor, some that I actually found pretty funny. One main point that people talk about when they discuss the game is the challenge. Well, it's not as painful as games like Cuphead. The Messenger is not an easy feat for a casual gamer. Around the start of the game, it's pretty easy, as are most games. As you gradually progress, the game gets harder, as you would expect. And now for those who have played the game, I would say my favorite level of difficulty is right around the top of the mountain as of now, and a bit after that. It's at the point where things aren't frustratingly difficult, and you have to try them a million times, but you're not going to beat them first try, and I enjoy that. Then it spirals into some really annoying stuff, with, while the platforming segments stay true to what I just said, the bosses start to get really hard, some with annoying mechanics. Red Dragon, instant death. I don't really mind a difficult game, but by the end, the Messenger was starting to get pretty freaking hard. As I mentioned earlier, the Messenger has some collectibles. Called Power Seals, there's a total of 45 to collect around all the different worlds. Now they're pretty simple and basic collectibles that aren't necessary to beat the game. All they do is give you, in my opinion, a really sucky reward. I wouldn't recommend going through all the trouble, but if you enjoy the game, I suppose you do you. One major flaw in the game that really ruins the experience for me is towards the middle and end of the game, you have to repeat the same segments so many times. Unlike at the start, you aren't just going right on the screen until you make to the next area. You're actually searching for items that are only described by a very vague riddle. It eventually got frustrating to spend 30 minutes trying to make it to one area where you think the item might be, and then it isn't even there at all. While the ending of the game tries to stray a bit away from the usual platformer, situations like these make it kind of pointless or not fun. Ending it off on a high note, I really do like the idea of a skill tree. It's a nice twist to the classic platformer even if you complete it very early. It makes for some cool moves and mechanics for unique game design. Speaking of mechanics, I also must say that the controls for this game are very nice and smooth. There's not too much to them, but they blend together nicely. Anyways, in the end, The Messenger comes out as a somewhat frustrating platformer with some good and bad aspects. I'm going to give it a solid B+. Thanks to everyone for watching, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you all later.